Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Data Center Exchange. I'm d.connolly, hosting a podcast shining a light on the digital infrastructure world and talking through some of the hottest topics across the industry. Now, today's main talking point is all about the skills gap and the challenges that brings to the industry. We're going to look back at the industry and how that's evolved and the challenges that's brought. We'll also have a little sneak peek into the future and just to explore things like AI and how that may change the industry and how it might impact the people side of the industry we work in. It's a topic we discussed before, but it's a really important topic, and I don't think it's one that's going to go away in the years to come. I'm sure it'll be discussed many more times over too. I'm joined today by someone who's very passionate about this very talking point. He's the Executive Vice President of T5 Data Centers. He's based out of Spring in Texas. He's an ex-naval officer as well, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about. But that also demonstrates the strong connection between senior leaders of the industry and their previous careers within the armed forces as well. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome John Shingler onto the podcast. John, welcome to the Data Center Exchange.
Thanks, Del. Excited to be here and talk with you today.
Very good. Thank you very much. Look, we always start in the same place. We always make it about yourself and your journey. So I'd love you to give the listeners an insight into your journey up until the point you entered the digital infrastructure world.
Thanks for asking that. So one thing that I think is very interesting in this industry is so many people have come from different industries, come from the military. So it's always interesting to hear where people come from. And my journey here is, I would say, been unique. But then when you talk to other people, they're like, oh, I have a very similar path. So I went to college at the University of Notre Dame, did my studies there. After I graduated, I went into the Navy. I was a surface warfare officer. I was nuclear trained. So that means I went to the nuclear power school and I worked on an aircraft carrier. I spent 5 years in the Navy. I had a great experience. Spent my first tour out of Japan. And then I went to nuclear power school, and then I was on the USS Enterprise out of Norfolk, Virginia, which was a great experience, made great connections and friends that I still keep in touch with today. At the end of my 5 years, you have to make that decision whether you're staying in or getting out. And my passion was to get into college football coaching. So I coached college football for 8 years following the Navy. I was at 4 different universities, had a great experience, and really spent time and love coaching, teaching. To this day, it's still what I have a huge passion for, is to coach and teach individuals. There was a time at that time in my career, in my life, I was married, I had 2 children. I started to think, we had moved 4 times already. I started to think, hey, I need to probably find some way to either stabilize. I see other friends who were out coaching, doing other things. So I called some friends. I had a friend who said, look, I run a oil and gas service company. Would love to have you come be a project manager in oil and gas. And I said, well, I know nothing about oil and gas. I know nothing about being a project manager. So sure, let's go do it. And I moved down to near Houston, like you said, just north of Houston, Texas, and spent a few years working in offshore oil and gas for an oil and gas service company, supporting different wells, supporting different projects. And that took me until the time where I got a call to come into the data center industry.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And look, interesting. I'd like to touch on the. Going to go off topic already, actually, and just ask you about that sort of passion for coaching and developing. Where do you think that came from?
So, from the time I was probably in 3rd grade until I was a senior in college, I played football, and I had 2 older brothers who played football through college. And it wasn't just football. We were into any sport with a ball. Whether it was baseball, basketball, it did not matter. Running track, anything we did in our family, it was, hey, we were very competitive brothers. Everything was about sport, and our father often coached our teams. And then I had very influential coaches throughout my whole life. So whether it was my high school coach, who I still keep in touch with to this day, if it was my college football coach, I still try to keep in touch with. All of those people were very influential, and it instilled a love for the sport, but it also showed me how much impact a person could have just by coaching, by teaching. I still keep in touch with some of my teachers. I have to laugh. My fourth grade teacher was at my wedding.
Wow.
And so it was someone, who was impactful in your life, who made a difference in your life, that still I talk to on a semi-regular basis to this day.
I love that, because you ask anybody about their early years, and we've all got those one or two teachers that all coaches that made just such an impact. They probably don't know it now, but they made such an impact to us at whatever point of life we were in at that time. I love that.
What's the good part is, I think it was 2 years ago. It wasn't this season, but the previous season. I was back on campus, and we my old coach was there, and I was, one, able to introduce my children to him, and two, was able to just talk to them about the impact they had on me. So it's really good that you can kind of follow back and explain to someone the impact they have, because yes, there's tons of money nowadays in college football. There wasn't
Yeah.
20 years ago, 20 plus years ago when I played, but there was there's that, to be able to explain to them and talk to them. That's why people coach. Even though there is money, most people coach because they love the sport and they love impacting individuals
Yeah.
in a positive manner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so you've gone from the forces to college football coach to oil and gas, and then into the data center world. How did that come about? How did you get into that?
So I got a call from one of my college roommates, who he was talking to someone, and that person had just suffered, and it was one of his friends, and that person had just suffered an outage, and they were like, look, I need someone to come and lead a team and get them through this difficult time. And he goes, just call my buddy. And he goes, well, is he in data centers? He's like, God, no, but he can relate to people. He understands processes, procedures, and just give him a call. And so I said, huh. And he's like, okay. So I get a call one day, and it was it's not from T5, but it was from a different company, and said, hey, we'd love to have you talk to us about working and running some data centers. And I said, I know nothing about that. And he's like, well, do you understand processes and procedures from your time in the Navy? I said, yeah. Even in oil and gas, it was very, very strict adherence to processes and procedures, understanding the impact of the smallest details into a work exercise. And he said, well, you have the basis. I can teach you what you need to know about data centers. And he said, from there, then what I really need is a leader who can bring this team back together out of an outage. So I talked to him. He sold me on it, and I've been in here since. So then, what's funny is, to get to T5, the person who hired me at my previous company, the best man in his wedding hired me at T5. So it's a small industry. Once you get in there, everyone knows each other. It's all related.
What I would say, just from the 5 minutes we've been speaking, though, John, is that there's a clear correlation to most things that have happened in your life, and the fact that you keep close relationships with people, which I'd like to come on to in a little while. But obviously, you hadn't done oil and gas before, but everyone knows what oil and gas is to a degree. With data centers, though, how much did you know what on earth they were or what they did? Did you have any idea whatsoever?
I had heard of them.
Yeah.
My brother has worked in data centers for a while, and he had always talked to me about, hey, you should come join me, work for his company in data centers. And I was like, sure, sure, sure. So I had heard the name. Did I know what that meant? No. To me, I didn't understand. No one was talking about the cloud. No one was talking about the Internet of Things. No one was talking about AI. So I didn't understand what an enterprise data center was, what a landing station, any of that stuff. No one, I just had heard it because I knew my brother did it. Did I have any clue what my brother did? No. So that's about the experience. So I really didn't have a good understanding of what they were. All I knew coming into it is someone had an outage, and that caused a lot of people a lot of grief. And so I knew I couldn't have one of those when I first got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you obviously know a lot about data centers now, but could you give us an insight of what your role is at T5, please?
I would go hesitate anyone to say I know a lot about data centers. I've been in the industry and I still learn every single day. Um, and I have a great team that supports me, who probably knows a lot more than I do. And so I'm not shy at saying that. My role every day is the executive vice president is to I work for the COO. We develop the long-term strategy for T5 facilities management and operations. So I look not what we're doing today, what we're doing tomorrow. My view is how we face the challenges of our industry, how we continue to grow as a company, how we continue to evolve as a company, and what steps we need to take to get to where we want to go as a company. Um, I'm responsible for our morale. I'm responsible for our culture as a company. So those things for me are what I really look to. Do I like to get into the weeds some? Yes. Does my team enjoy that? No, they try to keep me as far away from that as possible. But sometimes I do dive into the weeds and try to pretend that I can still understand what's going on. But really, I look at it from a strategic directive, and try to keep things going.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great insight. Thank you. And so, as we've already sort of heard, people you play an active role in people, in culture within your business, and you know clearly had an influence on where your career's gone as well. But just going on to the today's topic, really, of the people challenge in the data center market. How have you seen that? I guess from your perspective, John, how have you seen that change, and how's the market evolved in that respect in the last few years from what you've seen?
So what's interesting is when I first got into this, I would say you walk into it, and I knew I was coming into a situation that was somewhat unique, and it was like drinking from a fire hose. So, and my boss kept saying, hey, once we get through there's a lot going on right now. Once we get through the end of this year, it's all going to slow down and we're going to be able to catch up. We're going to spend more time training our people. We're going to be able to get to a steady state. And I thought, awesome. Well, then the next year comes and it keeps going. So now I haven't figured out when that slowdown is coming.
Hmm.
So I used to say that. I used to be like, hey, it's going to slow down next year. We're going to get to that steady state. Those projects, those long-term projects on developing people we want to work do, those long-term projects and setting up this system, we'll get to it next year because there's going to be a slowdown. I haven't seen that slowdown yet, and I don't know when it's coming. And so the biggest thing is people have pushed off a lot of those ideas, a lot of those thoughts for years because everyone's anticipated something slowing down. Even during COVID, my thought was, oh, this is going to slow down. It's going to be time to catch up and think and really spend time doing innovative things. Well, guess what? COVID probably launched this even faster to where we need to go. And so it's one of those things where now, instead of waiting for something to slow down, now we need to know we're going to continue to just go as fast as we can and continue to grow. But you need to bring that innovation, you need to bring that thought, you need to bring those projects you want to do. You have to do them while you're running full speed. And so it's one of those things where you need to have the right setup, you need to have the right people in place so you can do that. And I think that's what I've seen in this industry is everyone wanted to just wait for a slowdown to make changes. Well, that slowdown's not coming.
Yeah.
I don't know when it is. Would I love it? Yes, I would like to just sit down and be like, whoo, I have nothing to do today. But it doesn't happen. So, and I don't think it happens for anyone. So that's the biggest thing I've seen here.
Well, I totally agree. From everything, all the people I speak to and hear from, they echo that for sure. And how's that? How was that rapid growth, highly innovative sort of environment? How was that? What are the challenges that's created in just identifying good people to grow with you guys and the industry as a whole?
Well, so I read an article, and this has probably been like 6 years ago now, that there was going to be this huge personnel gap, skill gap, everything of 250,000 people. And I thought at that time, wow, that's a huge gap. That was years ago, and that gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't think it's the quality of people. There are quality people out there. I mean, there's not a person that I have hired or that we've hired that comes to work and says, I want to do a horrible job. People want to do great. People have the right attitude. Do we have the right processes? Do we have the right training? Do we have the right platforms in place to allow individuals to succeed? And it is that gap of people that keeps me up. It's that skill gap of people. It's that hiring of people and finding where people are coming from that keeps me up at night. That makes my mind always wonder, where are we going to find these people from? I've had the opportunity in the past year to go to multiple events. We expanded over to Europe last year, and I was at DCD London. I've been to a couple different PTC to spend time. And the only thing, talking to our customers, talking to my peers, anyone out there, the worry everyone seems to have is, where are we going to find the people? How are we going to train those people? And what's the impact it's going to have on our industry? And we don't talk about equipment. Yes, there's power issues. There's issues that a lot of people are worried about. But the number one conversation everyone seems to have when you're out is, where are we getting the people? How are we training them? Where are we bringing them up? And that's why this is kind of one of those things. I know you've talked to other people on the show about this, and it kind of often sits there. And everyone, at least in the US, the thought was, hey, let's all just take from the Navy nukes.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
we'll go get the Navy nukes. Well, there's not enough people leaving the Navy nuclear power program every single day for everyone to hire. And you have to find other avenues, and you don't want to have everyone with just the same background, the same thought process. You want to have diversity of thought, diversity of background. So you have to look elsewhere as well. So it's not as simple as, let's just go hire ex-military all the time anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, we have spoke to other people about this, and I guess that me just being oversharing now, that the only hang up I have of doing that is because we are fundamentally a recruitment business, and it kind of can be self-serving talking about the people shortages all the time on a podcast, but it's a real problem. It's a real problem. And, I think whatever the industry has in front of it, people are always going to be at the center of it. Well, AI might have something to say about that, but fundamentally, people are going to be super important. And it's really important we continue to talk about it and explore the challenges, but the solutions as well as to what can be done in the industry.
I thought it might be just a US issue. And then when they
No,
expanded over to Europe, I'm like, whew, I won't have to hear this. And it's the only thing people want to talk about in Europe. And I'm like, all right.
it's a real
So
it's a real problem, and not just within the data center. It's other industries that are highly technical or have a foundation of sort of STEM to them. That it's a real problem throughout sort of out the world, really, I guess. But
yeah.
so you talk about your Navy Nuke background yourself, and I know the industry embraces servicemen and women from the forces. How do you guys utilize that sort of that avenue? I think you just alluded to that you do, but can you talk to us about that?
So um I'm a Navy Nuke. Our head of HR is a former West Point grad. So he was in the Army and he leads our recruiting. Um we have lots of former military, ex-military individuals um, on our team. And because of that, you often will bring in a lot of your peers, a lot of people it's easy to get a recommendation for an individual. Um, so we have a lot of former military individuals at T5. And I would say right now we're around 30% of our team is ex-military, and it might even be higher than that. It varies, I think, depending on where we are. But because of that, you sometimes have to be cautious. Like I said, you want to have that difference in thought. But the great thing is having ex-military individuals in, they understand the processes and procedures and the importance of the critical mindset. I had the opportunity to take my family last summer. We were traveling on the East Coast, and I called one of my old shipmates who is the reactor officer on an aircraft carrier. So that's the highest nuke in on the ship. And he took us on a tour, and I walked around and we were looking through different things. And on there, we walked by this reactor department office, and they have the watch standing principles. And these are the same watch standing principles that they taught us when I was in, and they still teach today. And they are integrity, formality, ownership, watch team backup, level of knowledge, questioning attitude, procedural compliance. And when you look at those are all the things that make a great data center operator. If you have a high level of knowledge, if you're formal in the way you communicate, if you back one another up, if you have ownership of what you do every single day, and if you're willing to ask those questions, have that questioning attitude, you understand, hey, this doesn't seem right. Let me escalate this. Those things and those skill sets are what make great operators of our data centers. And so that's the reason why we often go to those military individuals and hire from those areas. And I think that's why. But we can teach all those same skill sets from someone coming out of high school, someone coming out of a trade, someone coming out of another industry.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, I mean that there is a real you can see and feel the influence the ex-service men and women have on the data center industry. But there is a finite amount of those people to go around, as you said earlier. And so I guess how important is it for businesses like yourself, individual and executives like yourself, John, to be open-minded to people from other industries as well?
I think it's critical because, like you said, there's a finite number of people. So we have to look to other industries. Where are those other industries? And that's what we're still understanding. It could come from any industry. Um, I've seen people coming now from oil and gas. because that industry fluctuates with the price of oil.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, when oil hit rock bottom, guess what? It was really easy to pull. When oil was $90 a barrel, it's harder to pull people from that industry. So you have to understand when you're going to get people from that industry. Shipping, people who've been, ocean engineering. Those people will be able to come if they've worked and they have the skill sets. They have an electrical or mechanical background, or the aptitude to electrical mechanical. Those are things we really look for when we pull from other industries. But we've found people from all different industries. If they have that want to, if they have the aptitude, they have the willingness to learn. It's we look anywhere we can to find the right individuals.
Do you find when you take people from other industries, like yourself from oil and gas and others, do you find that it's an industry that retains people once you're in?
It is. People now will they stay with the same company? That's a whole different story, because sometimes they'll jump from company to company. But I don't see people coming into data center industry and then often going out back to another industry. Sometimes they might say, hey, this is way too stressful. And I admit there is a level of stress, but I think there's a level of stress in any job that deals with a critical environment, where uptime and procedural compliance are held so high. If people come from an industry where safety isn't on the forefront, and then you're putting all these safety regulations and expecting them, yeah, they might not want to be here, but I think most people understand we want to keep people safe, and we want people to be in here a long time. But I just, a good example is, I was looking, had my human resources person pull this up, is people after 3-year span, if we brought you from another industry, the retention at T5, and this is not even leaving the industry, just the retention at T5, we brought you in and train you, is 86%.
Wow.
All right. If we brought you from another data center company, all right, and we've seen the retention at about 67%. So it's significantly higher, the retention of bringing someone in from an outside industry and training them up.
That's really interesting. And, look, there's no answer to this, I guess. So it's probably no point me asking it, but how long does it take for people to transition, just say, on average,
It really determines the situation,
Yeah.
and the person. If you bring in a person, and this is where it's always interesting where to bring that person in. If I have a new build greenfield site and that site does not go live, and you have a solid onboarding, solid training program, and the person has a technical aptitude and the ability to learn, or the want to learn. I think most people have the ability to learn. Do they have the want to get that learning done? With that being said, you can bring that person in 6 months, have them as a functional operator. I mean, when you go to nuclear power school as an officer, you're in the nuclear power pipeline. It's 6 months of power school, 6 months of prototype. All right, prototypes, you're working on a operational reactor under a lot of instruction, but that's after 6 months. You're letting someone go work on a nuclear reactor. So, I mean, if you put them in the right situation, they can function, they can do rounds. Now, will they know everything? No, you have to have them under supervision, you have to have them with the right people, but you can have those people fill in the gap.
Yeah. And those retention statistics are, for me, are so great to hear, because it just shows the return that you can get on that initial investment, and maybe pain of waiting to someone to transition and get up to the speed you need them to, but that investment is clearly helping you guys at the back end on retaining people. And I think going into the next 2 or 3 years, and I guess my next question is, how important is that retention to not just to T5, but across the industry? Because AI is going to accelerate, I believe, the need for people, but also we forget about the need to keep our people. It's quite easy to forget that and just look at finding new ones.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the demand signals in from AI, and part of that's the cloud growth of the cloud, and part of it's still AI. But you go to any publication, and people are buying land, people are building new data centers. I mean, we announced we're building a new one in Chicago, and I think we announced that like 2 months ago, and we're continuing to grow, and that's driven by that AI. So yes, there's more data centers coming up. There's more, and so you need those people to be the leaders, those technicians that you bring in today and you train need to become the leaders of those next data center that are going up, and need to be able to train the new individuals coming into the industry. Those are so important. Continuing to have those individuals here to train that next level of technicians is critical. We can't have that loss of knowledge.
Yeah. And what point, I know, obviously with any business, there's processes, there's having a great sort of technical product, I guess, but how pivotal do you think the people will be in success and failure of businesses like yours and others out there in the next sort of few years, John?
I mean, we are a service business. T5, we have a construction side,
Mm-hmm.
which helps develop and build out data centers, and we have my side, which is our operations side. So I always say I don't produce widgets. We provide highly trained and skilled people to do work. Without those people, we don't have a company. And so it is so critical. It is the most critical part. I mean, if I produced a cool widget, then maybe it wouldn't be as big of a thing, if and I could one day retire. But right now, where I'm reliant on continuing to hire, continuing to develop, continuing to train great people, and that is why my team is so important. And it's all about developing that relationship, and it doesn't matter if you are the newest person on my team. You are so critical to the success of T5 and where we are going as a company and our ability to grow and expand.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think many other businesses or all businesses would echo that as well. People absolutely central to their strategy and success, or failure if you don't get it right.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think as a whole the industry could do to help alleviate the skills shortages over the next few years? What we've looked at taking from other industries. Are there any other things that you think we could do? For example, do we need to shine a light on the industry more, or highlight the industry and give people more insight into what it actually does and what a data center is all about and how it impacts our lives? Is there anything you can think of that the
I think
industry could do more of?
I think we're starting to move the right direction, um, in how we can highlight what we do. Um, we need to, as an industry, and we're starting to do this, we need to not be, hey, we're our own industry. There's almost like a cloud of secrecy, a shroud of secrecy over us, and because we're not splitting the atom. We're running data centers. So we need to let people know, hey, this is what data centers do. This is the impact it has on daily life. I mean, without a data center, we couldn't do this podcast. It's
Yeah.
probably supported somewhere by a data center. You couldn't go on and do your Twitter and get your emails as quickly. So all of those things are part of our daily life, and it's provided to us by data centers. And I think we need to publicize what data centers actually do and how they actually impact the daily lives of every person. And from there, we can then start to bring people in. Right now, I do a lot of stuff at my kids' schools, and I do stuff from the time I have children from kindergarten through one who's about to go into high school. And when I look, no one sits there and says, "Oh, I want to be a." I go to their days. They don't say, "I want to be a data center technician. I want to be HVAC. I want to be an electrician." Um, and I think we can get into, if we publicize the industry right, if we let people know what we do, we can get to where kids say, "Oh, that would be a great industry to go into." What happens now is people go through high school and they go up and they say, "Okay, I need to find a job." They might go to a trade school. Then in a trade school, someone might say, "Hey, this would be a good industry for you to get into." We need to start getting down into those high schools, really working with counselors, really publicizing. This is a great way to go. This
Yeah.
is a great industry to get into. Work with colleges and universities. Um, Bring in those next people. And explain to them how this is a great industry to get into.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the grassroots is so important. And as you say, we all had advisors when we were younger in school and college, and you kind of personal experience that you just felt they were kind of siloed in the advice that they gave you, or didn't know the different industries. And I think data centers is very much one that by design is invisible in a lot of ways. It's shrouded in a bit of secrecy and NDAs, which is understandable and to a degree, but the impact it has on daily life is phenomenal. And yeah, it's very, I'm sure there's a huge amount of fulfillment factor, relating to that, which I think for younger people, they could, education on that is so important.
Yeah, and I think I'm horrible at publicizing this ourselves, because we had a person at the bus stop one time who was having an issue with their computer. And my wife goes, "Oh, John works in computers. He can help you." And I'm like, "That is not what I do whatsoever. I have no understanding of being able to help someone set up their home computer." So it's really getting past some of those preconceived notions of what a data center is.
Yeah, no, I love that. So no, I really appreciate your participation today, John. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've got a couple more questions for you, if I may. I just wonder what the next 12 months look like for you and T5. Any exciting stuff that you can share and not get into trouble about sharing?
Um, I'll try not to get in trouble. That's what I try to do every single day. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm really excited about where T5 is headed. We have had a lot of growth in the past year and anticipate more growth coming from multiple different avenues. With that growth, and really what we've talked about is we've made a conscious effort to talk about the development of individuals. We know that as a company, we cannot continue the growth without changing something. So, in the past couple months, we've made a conscious effort to develop our training program and continue to grow our training program. I've actually hired, or in the process of hiring, two individuals solely to continue the development, content creators, trainers, to be able to develop those. And we're looking at building a full onboarding program. Uh, did I copy some of it? Yes, from when I was in oil and gas, but we had a very detailed, driven onboarding process of how we brought technicians in before we got them out to the field. I cannot do the year progression that we had for some of our field service technicians in oil and gas, but we are going to tone it down, and we want to bring them in. And I'm really excited about launching our new onboarding program. It is launching in Q1, and we are trying to utilize one of our sites to help develop, help bring people on before we send them to other sites. And it's something that if it works out, I think it will be very, very good for us and very good for other companies that we can help utilize that process. So I'm excited about that. We are looking at continuing to figure out ways to grow our team and develop our team in the right way. And I think that will help our retention. It will help our employee satisfaction, because everyone wants to learn. Everyone wants to continue to grow their career. Everyone wants to know where their career path can take them. And this will really help them.
That's really positive, John. And again, from the top of the episode to the latter points, you can hear your sort of passion for coaching and developing people, which is really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, if you weren't in the data center world, this is always the final question. And now you've already been in various different worlds, I guess. But if you weren't in the data center world and you hadn't have got that call, what would you be doing?
And that's often the "what are you going to do when you grow up" question. And first, I don't know if I'll ever grow up, so I don't know if I'll ever have to face this question. But if I didn't weren't working right now in this industry, I might go back to coaching or in teaching. I just think that is such a passion. I coach my children's girls lacrosse teams right now in the off season, and I continue to say, I won't do it this year, and then they convinced me to continue to coach. So I would probably be doing something like that, or in a completely different vertical. I might go and be a chef. I think that would be a very interesting. Now I understand it's a hard industry, and people I've talked to in the industry say it's one you never want to get into, but that would kind of be a fun one. I think we need to do like a data center cook-off at one of these events, and have people provide a cook-off team.
That would be, well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about that, because that would be amazing. That and I would be front of line. That's for sure. John, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've had a bout of illness recently, so to give up your time and sound so good, and thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time.
Thanks so much, Del, for having me, and it was great to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.